April, a hungry ghost. Day by day, week by week, little by little Shirley shrank until she was no more. It was the only explanation. Why else did the class, which had welcomed her so warmly at first, ignore her so now? True, she could only speak a few words at a time, and most often no one could even guess at the meaning of those. True, she was a coward. Those who broke the rules to go to Mr. P's no longer bothered with her. True, she was stupid, too stupid to know the difference between a wink and a tick until Father explained. But still, didn't they know how lonely she felt? It was spring now, but Shirley, hunched in her coat, walked as if there were still snow on the ground. Carefully, she sidestepped the boys who played basketball, the girls who roller skated, the groups who seemed to laugh or whisper whenever she passed. She dreaded the distance across the schoolyard. It was endless and full of traps. If a loose ball rolled by, should she catch it? If a girl fell, should she help her up? If someone glanced her way, should she wave? This afternoon, as every afternoon, she pretended to have somewhere to go and hurried on. But she had nowhere to go but home. At Mr. P's, she slowed down. The pennies in her pocket jingled to be spent, but the usual crowd was pressed nose to nose at the counter, and she hurried on. With no one to talk to, she mumbled to herself. Buffalo. Stink, stank, stuck. Liberty. Slave. Mississippi liver. She tried to string these new words with the old ones in sentences, but she had no more success than a blind man threading beads. Ahead was a gang playing stoop ball, blocking her way. She waited for a quiet moment when she could pass. This game was different from the others. This one she knew how to play. It was just like Trap the Birdie, except instead of throwing up feathers stuck inside the hole of a coin, the player bounced a ball against the step and called out a mystery number. The one assigned that number had to catch the ball to win a point for his team. Suddenly, a ball flew overhead and the crowd was running toward her. She ducked inside the delicatessen next door for safety. It smelled strangely, as if packed with dirty, damp socks, which upon closer inspection she recognized as cheese and fish. Not the silvery catches that swam and somersaulted in the wooden basins that lined the market at the foot of the mountain of 10,000 steps. Dead fish, so long dead that cook would probably not even throw them out to the cats. Slivers of gray fish pickled in white glue, smoked fish with yellow eyes that bulged, raw red fish without heads or tails. The owner spoke up. Pointing to a pack of juicy fruit gum, Shirley handed him the pennies. She waited by the door for the ball to fly in the opposite direction. When the coast was clear, she started to run across the sidewalk. Just then a voice asked, "Want to play?" It belonged to Joseph, who sat behind her in class. His hair was always slicked down and scientifically parted in the middle. His belly protruded just enough for his hands to rest comfortably upon it. His face was pure white, as if his mother had powdered her baby on the wrong end. But to Shirley at this moment he was the handsomest boy in all of Brooklyn. "Please," she said, "please." The other players groaned, but did nothing to stop Joseph from whispering in her ear, "You are number 8 on my team." She nodded eagerly, then bowed to all the players. Then they groaned again. The next number called was hers. She ran after the ball, bumping teammates along the way, only to let it slip through her fingers. It didn't matter. She was on a team. Her happiness did not last. No sooner had she learned to smack the ball smartly on the steps, angling it right or left, than the other players revolted. Nobody wanted the Chinese on his team, for whenever she yelled out a mystery number, it was no mystery at all. It was always 1 or 2 or 3. No surprise, always 1 or 2 or 3. In the excitement of hurling the ball, she couldn't remember how to say the higher numbers, especially after she had missed every ball when the other team called 8. Pretty soon they were calling 8 almost every time. Her team was losing. It was all her fault. Finally, Joseph approached her with an outstretched hand. She shrugged, gave up the ball, and stood apart again to watch. She laughed along when someone missed. She cheered along when someone scored. Always a second too late, a second too long. Yet none of the gang noticed. They seemed not to see her at all. She ought to go home, she thought. Mother had learned to make delicious cupcakes. But she did not move. She stood by instead like a hungry ghost. Finally, one player left. Shirley followed a few steps behind her, pretending to kick a castaway can whenever the American turned to glance her way. At home, she locked herself in the bathroom. Tiptoe on the toilet seat, she peered into the mirror, trying to blow bubbles with her juicy fruit gum. Even the first graders blew bubbles as big as a full moon. Hers were no bigger than a button. Jaws aching, she tried again and again. She had to do something right, had to. Our daughter's not herself, she heard Mother say to Father when she thought Shirley was asleep. She'll be fine again soon, Father said. Even the finest engine has a few knocks at first. But I'm not an engine, she thought. Engines don't cry. Engines don't need friends to talk to play with, to share. Reaching out, she tried to pretend fourth cousin was there. The next day, everyone was assigned a poem to recite. Shirley was not. She decided to learn one anyway. Over and over, she played the new record Father had bought for her, imitating each sound until she was certain she could repeat a stanza. Then, locking herself in the bathroom, she practiced before the mirror. She gestured to the right. She gestured to the left. Not exactly certain of the meaning of the words, she dared not elaborate more. Her father, who spoke English well and tutored her, could have explained them all, but Shirley wanted her efforts to be a complete surprise. Wait until they hear, she told herself. Just wait. In class, she was disappointed when Mrs. Rappaport did not call for volunteers, but asked each student to recite in turn by seats. Down the first row, up the second. At last it was Joseph's turn, and she was next. Sidling to the edge of her seat, she waited, so sure of her success that she was not even nervous. Joseph's poem seemed very long. Would it never end so she could shine? Before he had even sat down, she popped up. Everyone murmured, wondering at the Chinese ambassador. Shirley waited for complete silence. Then, clearing her throat, she began. At once they were giggling, even Mrs. Rappaport. There was nothing to do but gesture to the right and gesture to the left, exactly as she had practiced, only faster and faster until the final stanza was done. Now everyone was laughing openly. Shirley pretended to share their merriment, but tears welled in her throat, and she could only manage a weak smile. What had gone wrong? Had she done something stupid again? She wanted to run, but her feet would not obey. The laughter continued. Soon she stood like a forlorn scarecrow under the pelting rain.